The phone rang just after 10. Too late for casual calls, too early for emergencies. My mother's name blinked on the screen, and for a second, I hesitated. Nothing good ever came from a conversation that started with her voice at this hour. I answered anyway. "Are you still planning to attend the wedding?" she asked, like it was a follow-up, not a bombshell. "What wedding?" I managed to keep my tone even. "My brother's wedding, of course, but last I checked, no one had told me the date. No invite, no group message, no accidental Instagram leak." "Oh," she paused like she'd forgotten that part. "Didn't you get the text? They sent the invites last week." I walked to the kitchen, needing something, anything, to focus on. "I must have missed it," I lied. "Well," she continued with that syrupy tone she used when delivering backhanded compliments or sugarcoating barbed wire, "your brother thought you might distract from the vibe. But he said you can still come, if you dress appropriately." I let out a soft chuckle. My heart wasn't in it. "They said you're welcome," she added, "but don't wear red. Don't be dramatic." Click. The line went dead, but I was still standing in my kitchen, holding the phone like it might offer an explanation. It didn't. The next morning, I found myself staring at the dress bag I'd bought 3 months ago. Not red, not dramatic, just elegant, classic, the kind of thing someone wears when they still believe they'll be seen, not tolerated. I poured myself some tea and sat on the couch, alone. My awards stared back from the bookshelf. Best in Photography, Atlanta Magazine cover feature, National Geographic contributor plaque. Proof of a life well lived, and yet irrelevant in the eyes of my family. I thought back to that barbecue 5 years ago, my ex by my side, my mother whispering in the kitchen, "She's just too much for this family." I remember pretending not to hear, sipping my lemonade like it wasn't laced with shame. Or Thanksgiving, when my cousin asked, "Still doing that artsy thing?" And someone else chimed in, "Maybe settle down like your brother did." I was always the noise, the spectacle, the story told over dessert when I wasn't in the room, so I texted my brother, just to be sure. "Hey, just confirming the wedding's next weekend?" Minutes passed. Then the message came, "Let's not make this about you." There it was. I stared at the words like they were in another language. We used to be close, back when he'd steal my camera and beg me to take his headshots for auditions, back when he believed in me. And now, about you. Why is it always about image with them? Protecting appearances, not people. I closed the chat, letting the silence fill the room. The kind of silence that wraps around your ribs and squeezes until you question your own memories. My fingers grazed the zipper of the dress bag, but I didn't open it. Not yet. Morning came, and with it, a need to breathe. I drove to the cemetery. Dad's grave was under the dogwood tree. He always liked that tree, said it looked like it was bowing, not broken. I knelt down beside him, the spring breeze brushing my hair across my cheek. "They want me quiet, Dad, polished, unseen." The words left my mouth before I knew they were there. I pulled a small photo from my pocket. My first magazine cover, printed at 22, standing in the middle of a Kenyan wildlife reserve. I placed it gently beside his name. A man walking his dog passed by. He stopped, eyeing the picture. "You've got an eye," he said. I smiled, just a little. "It's not about being seen," I whispered. "It's about what you see." Back in the city, I stood in front of a mirror inside a boutique. Dresses hung like polite apologies, beige, blush, navy, nothing too loud, too bright, too me. My mother's voice echoed in my head, listing rules, no red, no white, nothing statement-y. A sales assistant approached, her expression curious. "You don't seem like someone who hides well." I laughed, but it didn't reach my eyes. What was I doing? Buying silence. Packaging myself into a shape they might finally accept. I turned away from the rack, my reflection shrinking in the mirror behind me. As I stepped out onto the sidewalk, the sun had begun to dip low, casting long shadows on the concrete. I pulled out my phone, texted one line, "Can I crash in Paris this weekend?" I packed light. One camera, one black dress I hadn't worn in years, a pair of boots that still had red dust from Arizona. No wedding shoes, No RSVP. I tossed everything into a carry-on and zipped it up like sealing a door behind me. Chelsea met me at Charles de Gaulle with arms open and no questions. Just a laugh and, "You're lucky I have a couch and no sense of personal space." We hugged tight. It had been years, but distance never dissolved real people. As we rode the train into the city, I opened the wedding group chat by mistake. My cousin had sent a meme that auto-downloaded. Curiosity got the best of me. I scrolled. My name appeared only once. Just make sure she doesn't pull a stunt. A stunt? I stared at it, the words hitting like a cold draft. I wasn't a fire starter. I was the one they blamed when things got warm. I closed the app and looked out the window. The French countryside rushed past like someone else's dream. I whispered to myself, I choose peace, not permission. The days that followed passed like softened film reels, edges blurred, time slow. Chelsea handed me her spare Metro card, a map scribbled with her favorite bakeries and places tourists ignored. "Don't plan. Just follow your feet," she said. And I did. I wandered without needing to land. I shot photos with no theme. Pigeons near Notre Dame, an old man feeding cats in Belleville, reflections in storefronts where no one noticed they were being watched. Chelsea caught me editing one night and said, "No brands, no poses, just you." That sat with me, just you. I titled the series Reflections. I wasn't sure why at first, but it felt right. There was something honest in mirrors, how they showed what people overlooked when they stopped looking. Late afternoon near the Eiffel Tower, I sat on a bench adjusting the settings on my camera. A man walked by, paused, then turned back. "I know your work," he said, pointing at my camera. "You're the girl with the hands photo, right? The one holding light in the dark." I blinked. He wasn't asking. He was sure. "Yeah," I said. "That's me." He smiled. "That picture helped my daughter get through rehab. Just thought you should know." And just like that, I mattered. Not because of my family name, not because I behaved, but because I'd made something that reached someone. That evening, Chelsea and I sat in her flat, legs tangled on the couch. I was sipping tea when my phone buzzed. My brother. "Please don't post anything distracting this weekend. It's important to us." That was it. No, "How are you?" No, "Hope Paris is good." Just a reminder that I was still a variable to manage. Chelsea leaned over, read the message, and gave me that raised eyebrow look. "Do you know how powerful you are that they still try to dim your light from across the ocean?" I didn't respond to him. Not with words. Instead, I grabbed my camera, set the alarm for 5 a.m., and laid out the red dress. Paris was still sleeping when I walked barefoot to the base of the Eiffel Tower. The streets were quiet, a few joggers, a baker unlocking his shop. I set the tripod down in a patch of light and hit the self-timer. I didn't smile. I didn't pose. I stood still, arms wide open, wind curling through my hair, red fabric wrapping around my legs like a slow-burning flag. People passed. Some stopped. A woman snapped a picture on her phone. I didn't care. By mid-morning, I sat by the Seine, Chelsea beside me eating a croissant with too much butter and no shame. "They want me quiet," I said, scrolling through the shots, "so I'm making art instead of noise." Chelsea didn't flinch. "You realize that's even louder, right?" I stared at the image. It wasn't about defiance. It was about truth. About finally putting my name next to something that felt like me. So I posted it. Caption: "This was never about weddings. It was always about worth." The walk to the gallery was quiet. Paris felt still that afternoon, low clouds, a soft wind. Chelsea had a meeting, so I went alone, hoping to spend a few moments feeling like a guest in something again. The building was tucked behind a florist shop, a small stone place with tall windows and little signage. Inside, a modest crowd moved between white panels, reading printed notes from wedding guests across the globe. I looked for mine. There was a display labeled Memory Wall. Dozens of names, messages written in soft cursive. Some were printed on glossy paper, others paired with Polaroids. A video looped on a screen above. I walked the full length of the exhibit. Twice. My name wasn't there, not in small print, not in the scroll, not even misspelled. A woman in a black turtleneck approached me gently. "Pardon," she said. "You submitted a message?" "Yes," I answered. "2 weeks ago." She hesitated. "It arrived too late to be included." I looked at her. Calm. Composed. Perhaps the deadline was different for others. She smiled politely and turned away. I stood there a minute longer, hands in my coat pockets, breath held. Why do I always arrive on time only to be told I'm late? Back on the street, I didn't cry. I walked past a bakery, down 2 blocks, and sat outside a cafe. The bitterness I tasted wasn't in the coffee. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. An American lifestyle magazine had picked up my Eiffel Tower photo. They wanted a remote interview. A candid conversation with the woman redefining bridal boundaries, they called it. I hesitated, then agreed. The journalist, Tom, had a polished voice. He smiled too much. The interview started gently. "What brought you to Paris?" "Space," I said. "Not from anyone, just for myself." He nodded. "Some say you're trying to steal your brother's spotlight. Why is that?" I didn't flinch. "When someone shows you who they are," I said, "believe them." He chuckled. "So, they've shown you?" I leaned in. "Plenty." He paused, then pushed again. "Do you think your family fears you outshining them?" For a moment, I saw my mother's careful eyes, my brother's clipped tone, Vera's shallow compliments. I thought of how many times I'd been told to dress down, speak softer, laugh less. I smiled. "I think they fear I'll stop playing small." The call ended. I turned off the camera. Later that day, my phone lit up again. This time, a text from Kayla, an old friend in Atlanta. It was a screenshot from a gossip blog. She made the photos just to provoke attention. What a distraction. The headline stung more than the words, not because it was cruel, because I recognized the source. The blog had once praised my early work, back when I was less visible, less bold. Corbin's message came right after. "Calm down. Don't add fuel to the fire." The fire? My fire was breath, truth, pulse. It wasn't a blaze I lit. It was a house they burned, then blamed me for the ashes. I opened my voice notes and whispered, "I never asked for permission to exist." The sun was dipping when I dialed my Uncle Mars. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, baby girl." I closed my eyes. That voice carried home in it. Safety. Logic. He listened quietly as I told him about the memory wall, the interview, the blog. "I heard Vera had something to do with that article," he said carefully. "A family friend tipped me off." I went still. "She wanted to keep the focus on the wedding. Said you were too much heat." I laughed once, not because it was funny, because betrayal always comes from hands that once fed you. "She's not new to this," he added. "She's practiced." "What do I do?" I asked. "You don't fight with fists," he said. "Fight with light. Let everyone see the patterns. The shadows tell their own story." That night, I didn't cry. I set up my camera by the window, framed by the glow of the setting sun. The city moved outside my lens, slow and unaware. I opened my phone, hovered over the share button. I didn't post the photo. Instead, I typed, "They tried to erase me. I'll post every name, every face, starting tomorrow." Then I closed the app. Midnight crept closer. My finger hovered. The silence was loud. Morning arrived slow, the kind of quiet that feels suspicious, like something's holding its breath. I found a corner table at the cafe Chelsea loved, same spot we sat the day after I landed. I ordered tea instead of coffee, trying to feel grounded, like this was just another day in Paris and not the day before the wedding I wasn't meant to attend. I opened my notebook, intending to write something honest, but instead, I found myself scrolling. The post from last night had exploded, over 200,000 shares, people from everywhere writing things like, "Finally, someone said it," others less kind, self-centered, attention-seeking. Why air family drama for likes? Then came the punch, a screenshot, an email, supposedly from me, demanding to be added to the wedding program. The tone was snide, aggressive, too polished to be me, but it had my name, my signature, even the right email address. I froze. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was disbelief. The kind that makes your chest go cold before your brain catches up. I read the fake words, over and over. I deserve a segment. This wedding is nothing without me. It wasn't just false, it was deliberately cruel. A version of me they'd built, handed over to the world, then stepped back like it wasn't their doing. They forged the fire, and now blame me for the smoke. Chelsea burst through the door not long after, hair tied up, no makeup, phone gripped tight in her hand. "They're trying to bury you with lies," she said, before sitting. She turned her screen toward me. Erica, my brother's soon-to-be sister-in-law, had posted something vague but pointed on her Instagram story. Some people need to learn not everything is about them, before they lose more than just a wedding invite. Chelsea looked at me. That's a threat, dressed up as manners. I sipped my tea slowly. They want me quiet, so they made a version of me they could silence instead. She nodded. The truth doesn't panic. Let them exhaust themselves lying. We'll work while they gossip. I wanted to believe that. But rage hums underneath grief, and my hands were already reaching for my phone. I didn't type anything yet. Instead, I called my brother. For once, he picked up. There was no hello, just silence on the other end, like he was daring me to speak first. "Did you see the fake email?" I asked. Calm. A pause. "It doesn't matter if it's real," he said flatly. "It does," I wanted to scream. But I didn't. "It does if you let a lie define me." He exhaled sharply. "You chose a camera over your family. What did you expect?" "I chose truth over pretending. That's not the same. You always have to be dramatic." "No," I said, voice low, steady. "You just don't like that I stopped apologizing." He hung up with 5 words that echoed like a warning. "Don't do anything stupid tomorrow." By mid-afternoon, I was back in my hotel room. I didn't unpack. I just stared at the messages piling up, then a direct message slid in from Erica herself, paragraphs of fake politeness. "Just concerned for you. It's not healthy to hold on to resentment. You're putting a target on your back." Translation: stay in your place, or we'll help you disappear. I typed out a reply, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, I sent 3 words. "Nice try, Erica." They trained me for silence, but now they fear my voice. That's the shift they never expected. That's what they can't control. I stopped replying to messages after that, not because I was backing down, but because I knew how I wanted to answer. Chelsea came by after sunset with her laptop and a bottle of wine. "Let's do something they won't see coming," she said. I already knew what I wanted. We planned a pop-up exhibition. 1 night, 1 space, no invitations, just truth. It would stream live across my channel. The series I'd been shooting in secret, Reflections, would finally see daylight, or in this case, moonlight. Every frame was a mirror, a window, a shadow, proof that I'd always been here, even when they pretended otherwise. I wrote the caption teaser that night. "What truth looks like when you stop asking for permission." Chelsea raised her glass. "To the stage you built from silence." The last photo I framed for the show, I titled it, "What They Tried to Bury." The room was too quiet. That kind of quiet that doesn't calm you. It tests you. My suitcase sat open at the foot of the bed, half packed, half forgotten. I stared at it for a long time, weighing the question I'd been avoiding. Should I leave? For years, I believed silence kept the peace, that if I just stayed small enough, they'd stop pushing. I learned early, don't talk about what hurts, don't challenge what's normal. It's what we do in American families like mine. We confuse silence with love, avoidance with unity, but peace built on pretending isn't peace. It's pressure. The knock on the door broke the stillness. Chelsea walked in without waiting. She looked wrecked, hair tied up, phone clutched like a weapon. "They just posted about you." I didn't even ask who they were. I knew. She tossed her phone onto the bed. The screen showed a familiar blue banner, the family's group page, a smiling stock photo of hands holding candles. The caption read, Spotlights can blind people who forget where home is. No tags, no names, just poison with manners. I took a deep breath and said, "This isn't silence. It's gaslight in cursive." Chelsea sat down. "You gonna respond?" I shook my head. "No, I'm done speaking their language." She looked at me like she wanted to argue, then stopped. The truth was, she'd seen me break before. She knew this quiet wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Later that evening, over tea and leftover pastries, Chelsea told me something I hadn't expected. "I need to tell you something," she said, eyes wet but steady. "I met your brother last week." I blinked. "You what?" "At a cafe. I thought maybe I could reason with him. I told him to stop all this smear stuff, that you weren't chasing attention. You were just hurt, trying to stand your ground." I didn't interrupt. She kept talking. "He told me she knows what she's doing. Then he said, sometimes family needs protecting from itself." Her voice cracked at that part. She covered her face with her hands, trying not to cry. I stared at the wall behind her. "He's never protected me," I said quietly. "Only their idea of family." She nodded, silent. In that moment, I realized something. Chelsea wasn't just standing beside me. She'd stepped into the fire, risked her own peace for mine. I'd been so focused on surviving that I hadn't seen the people who were choosing me despite the cost. The next day came faster than I expected. Paris was humming again, street chatter, traffic, the smell of bread baking somewhere close. We spent the morning loading framed photos into the car. Our silent show, as Chelsea called it, wasn't meant to be a spectacle. It was quiet rebellion. No banners, no signs, just art placed where people couldn't ignore it. By dusk, the pop-up was alive near the Seine. The Eiffel Tower loomed in the distance, glowing like an audience. Each photo stood on its own stand, lit softly from below. My favorite piece, the one that started it all, hung at the center. Me at the rehearsal dinner years ago, smiling wide, sunlight spilling across my face. I'd been cropped out of that picture in every version my family ever shared. Now it stood alone, uncropped, free. Each photo carried a caption, truths I'd never been allowed to say aloud. "You can't love me and erase me. Being quiet isn't the same as being wrong. Family doesn't mean obedience." People started to stop. Strangers, tourists, locals walking their dogs. Some took photos. Others just stared. Then the phones came out. QR codes scanned. Comments shared. Screens lighting up in the twilight. Online, the numbers climbed fast. Tens of thousands. Hundreds. No one from my family came. But their absence said more than their presence ever could. As the sky turned deep blue, I sat on the low stone wall by the river and watched the lights ripple across the water. "Silence, when chosen, is strength," I said to myself. "When forced, it's a cage." A voice behind me said, "You're the girl from the photo, right?" I turned. A woman in her 50s stood there, coat pulled tight against the wind. Her eyes were kind, tired in a familiar way. She smiled. "My sister stopped talking to me after I opened my own business, said I was too much. I saw your video. You told our story too." I felt something settle in me, like a knot finally loosened. "Guess we've all been cropped out of someone's frame," I said. She laughed softly. "Keep making noise, even when they call it trouble." Chelsea came over then, slipping her arm around me. "If they wanted you invisible," she said, "they forgot you came with a flash." I smiled. "And a gallery." That's when my phone buzzed. A new message. No name attached, just, "You need to see what Erica's planning tomorrow." The notification pulsed against my palm, the light blinking like a heartbeat. Whatever tomorrow was going to be, it wouldn't be quiet. The message hit me at 7:02 a.m. I was brushing my teeth, tongue dull, heart loud. The notification glowed. From someone in the wedding party. "Erica plans to make you look unstable during the ceremony." They'd attached screenshots, texts with instructions. One read, "Spill champagne on her dress if she shows up." Another, "Make it look like an accident." I stared at my reflection. My eyes looked weary but clear. I swallowed. This was exactly the kind of lie they'd been weaving for weeks. Fake emails, public insinuations. Now they'd escalated. If they wanted a show, I'd give them truth on their stage. I let out a breath that was partly fear, partly rage. Then I closed the phone. I didn't plan on going, but I was going anyway. The vineyard venue gleamed in soft light. The trellises, the white chairs, the pastel florals. It was beautiful, almost sterile, perfect for hiding mess. Chelsea and I arrived quietly. She carried my red dress, folded, hidden under her coat. Cameramen hovered on the edges, watching us like hawks. My brother saw me. His face tightened, not anger, not surprise, but concern, as if he wondered whether I'd broken him. I stepped out of the car. "Congratulations," I said, voice steady. He said, "You shouldn't have come." I smiled. Funny how peace scares the people who live off chaos. Cocktail hour was a slow burn. I mingled quietly, nodding, accepting comments. But then it happened. A waiter bumped into me. Champagne sloshed across my chest. The crowd gasped. Erica gasped louder. "Oh no, not again!" she cried, dramatically, for effect. A ripple of murmurs. Phones lifted. Whispers. "She's ruining the day." But I was ready. Chelsea had the entire thing recorded. I turned to the waiter. Calm, controlled. "Who told you to do that?" His eyes flicked to Erica. He hesitated. The room held its breath. The silence cracked. My brother stared. Erica's mask slipped. Guests murmured. The leak revealed the setup was hers. A woman stood, my journalist from earlier. She stepped forward. "I've been following this family's story. That was staged." Gasps filled the hall. The bride demanded she leave. The journalist refused. My brother looked at me. With that shift, the scales tipping. He saw her hand, her plan. She had tried to control my narrative, but tonight, I refused to be background. I walked away from the crowd. Quiet, solid. "You can't bury light," I said under my breath. "It burns through fabric and lies alike." Later, Chelsea and I walked to Pont Alexander III. The Eiffel Tower sparkled in the distance, its reflection quivering in the Seine. 10 million views, she murmured. "Seems they needed me after all," I said. She handed me a lined envelope. Inside, a letter from Mars. "Proud of you, kid. You made them face themselves." Tears slid. Not sorrow, but release. My phone buzzed. New voicemail. From my brother. I didn't press play yet. The reception hall was glowing, string lights twinkling like stars trying too hard. My dress was simple, the color somewhere between cream and beige, intentional. I didn't want to stand out, I just wanted to see clearly. A waiter walked up to me, handed me a menu. My name printed on it, Marissa York. I didn't flinch, just nodded. Took it from him, turned toward the window facing the stage. They renamed me, not in anger, not in front of everyone, just quietly, so they could erase me without a fight. Chelsea touched my elbow. "You okay?" I held up the menu. "They don't need to uninvite you when they've already renamed you." Across the room, my brother's eyes met mine. There was a flicker, confusion, maybe guilt. I didn't look away. We moved toward the back, toward the long wall of screens broadcasting the ceremony's live stream. The footage rolled, family laughing, toasts clinking, wide smiles in sequence. And yet, frame after frame, my face was missing. I leaned in. No rehearsal dinner shots, no childhood group photos with me in them. I spotted Vera, standing behind the tech table, whispering something to the technician. His fingers tapped commands fast, deliberate. I whispered to Chelsea. "They're erasing me again, but this time digitally." She looked toward the screen, her jaw tightening. "It's not just petty, it's clinical." My hands shook, not out of shock, but because this was what they did best. Pretend you were never there. When the MC took the mic to invite family members to share a few words, I didn't wait. I stood and walked toward the stage. All eyes followed. I reached the mic, touched it. No sound. The room grew still. I tapped it twice. Still silence. Vera smiled, tight, calculated, then looked at the technician again. He shook his head. I didn't move. "If I had no place in your show," I said, Voice raised. Make no mistake, this mic belongs to the truth. It was loud enough to ripple across the silence. Someone in the crowd handed me a backup mic. I took it. And on the screen behind me, right then, a photo flashed. The rehearsal dinner, my brother and me. I was smiling wide, full of hope before any of this. But it was gone within seconds, cut from the rotation. A woman's voice rose from the crowd. Where's her picture? I stepped down from the stage, walked straight to the projector controls, pulled it up manually, froze it there. Me, him. Back when I still believed blood meant loyalty. Truth doesn't disappear just because you hide it, I said. The room didn't clap. Not yet. Just breathed differently. Some people stared down. Some looked at Vera. My brother looked away. I stepped off the platform, walked slowly. Each step sounded louder than the music now restarting. I didn't ask for an apology. Didn't wait for a thank you. Chelsea met me at the side and handed me my phone. The screen lit up with comments. Hundreds per minute. You are her story. They tried to erase you. You became the headline. I see you. I turned to my brother. He hadn't moved. I raised my voice just enough. One day you'll realize I didn't need the name on the invitation. I brought myself anyway. I started walking. Then I heard Vera. Her mic worked just fine. I never wanted her here, she said, loud and clear. I paused, but I didn't turn around. I'd waited for that moment longer than they knew. I didn't know who triggered it. Maybe the intern Vera overlooked, maybe a rogue technician who saw too much. But suddenly, every screen in the reception began shifting. One by one, the polished wedding loop disappeared, replaced by my photographs, my Reflections series. At first, people didn't realize what they were looking at. Then came the whispers, the shuffling of heels, the silence after recognition, images of family dinners with one chair always cropped out, a wedding rehearsal photo, the one with me cut at the edges, now centered. The caption underneath, you can crop a person, but not their truth. The technician stumbled out from backstage. I didn't press play, he muttered. It came from remote. He looked as stunned as the rest. I didn't say a word, didn't move, just stood there. Chelsea leaned in. This is their worst nightmare. Your work, unfiltered. Vera's lips tightened so fast I could hear the skin stretch. Her eyes scanned the screens, then the guests, then me. She knew this wasn't under her control anymore. Phones rose into the air, screenshots taken, streaming live, and I just let the silence breathe. What they'd tried to hide now had its own pulse. Minutes later, my phone buzzed in my hand, mentions climbing, hashtags forming. Then I saw it. Vera's post. She'd uploaded my Eiffel Tower photo, the one from the silent protest exhibit. Cropped, no watermark, no credit. The caption read, "Sisterhood is messy. Sometimes only one gets remembered." That wasn't carelessness. That was strategy. That was every moment from our childhood wrapped into a sentence. The way they'd rewrite history with a smile. The way they'd praise you while blotting your name from the page. I walked toward Corbin. He was talking to someone, or pretending to. When he saw me, he straightened, bracing. "Did you ever believe me enough to speak up?" I asked. He blinked. I tried to stay out of it. But you let her repost my hardest work without credit. Why? I didn't know she'd... No, I said. You did. You just didn't care. He opened his mouth again, but I didn't wait. I turned and walked to Vera. You recycled my light, I said calmly, clearly, and claimed it. But light isn't yours to own. She opened her mouth to respond, but her mic crackled, then died. This time, hers failed. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. All those years they spoke over me, cut me off, edited me out, and now the silence belonged to them. I stepped forward. My voice reached every corner of the room without need for speakers. You've spent your life editing my story. Tonight, let me tell mine, unfiltered. I spoke plainly about the fake posts, the edited invitations, the threats whispered in the name of family, about what it meant to be loved only in silence. I didn't cry. Others did. People I'd never met. Women in their 50s. Men with daughters. The way their faces shifted, like the air cleared. Then I stopped, not because I ran out of words, but because it was enough. I turned, walked out the doors with my camera swinging softly at my side. Outside, the sky had darkened. The Eiffel Tower blinked in rhythm, steady, bold. I looked up at it. They tried erasing me, I whispered. But I'm still here. Chelsea caught up with me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. You did it, she said. I nodded. No, we did. She handed me my phone, comments scrolling. She didn't just survive, she transformed. She spoke for every woman erased quietly. More power to her voice. I smiled, not for revenge, for release. Then the notification came in. A new post, from Vera. The caption read, "Why she's wrong about me." When I woke up, my phone looked like it had been struck by lightning. Vera's post, the one where she tried to reframe everything, had done the opposite. The comments were relentless, and not in her favor. People weren't fooled anymore. Her passive-aggressive words didn't land. They exposed her. Art critics chimed in. One called my Eiffel series a turning point in modern narrative photography. Another wrote, "From erasure to emergence, York's lens restores more than memory. It restores voice." I stared at the screen for a while, watching strangers say things I once begged my own family to understand. But I didn't respond. Not this time. My silence had become my loudest protest. By midday, Corbin called. I didn't plan to answer. But something in me paused. Maybe it was the tired in his tone, or the fact that he didn't start with excuses. "I think I got it all wrong," he said. I exhaled, long and slow. "You didn't have to pick sides," I told him. "You just had to say I mattered." There was a long silence. Then he asked, "Can we talk? Not on the phone." I agreed, but only if it was somewhere neutral. We ended up at the old cafe by the river, the one we went to as kids. Same cracked table by the window. Same too-strong coffee. He looked older, suddenly, not in years, but in weight. "I let her control the story," he admitted. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. "I kept thinking keeping the peace meant staying quiet," he said. "But all it did was keep you out." I nodded. That's what silence does. We didn't solve everything, but for the first time, I saw his eyes stay on mine, and that was enough for now. That night, back in my studio, I pulled out the old journal, the one I started at 18, full of film scraps, ink-smudged sketches, and letters I never mailed. One page stopped me cold, a letter to myself, written the night after I was cut from Vera's gallery invite. I had started it with, "If no one ever sees you, keep looking at yourself." I never finished it. I picked up a pen and added one last line, "You made it out, and you did it with your name intact." Then I closed the journal, for the first time, not because I was done writing, but because that chapter was done living. In the morning, I printed one large copy of the Eiffel photo. Matte finish, archival paper, no filter, no edits. I titled it, "They Tried to Crop Me Out." It sat as the centerpiece of a small, quiet gallery under the project name. Absent, present. No champagne, no sponsors, just people, mostly locals, mostly older, walking the space in silence. An elderly woman stopped in front of the photo. She looked at it for a long time. Then she turned to me and said, "I saw myself in that frame, not because I'm you, but because I'm finally seen." I didn't need applause. That was the victory. Later that evening, Chelsea and I walked along the Seine. She nudged me playfully. "Ready to post that apology from your brother?" I laughed. "Nah, let the past keep its silence." We kept walking. The Eiffel Tower was glowing ahead. I lifted my camera, but not to photograph the monument. Instead, I turned the lens toward Chelsea, catching her face lit by the golden reflection. I'd spent so long being the subject. Now, I chose when to tell the story, and who got to be in it. My phone buzzed again. An email. Subject: Invitation to exhibit, New York, spring. Below that, a title, Reflections from the Margins. I smiled. But that's another story. And this time, I'll tell it from the start.